The ultimatum. The message arrived without warning. Every screen on Earth lit up at the same moment. Televisions, smartphones, billboards, military displays, all hijacked by the same transmission. The face that appeared was not human. Scaled skin the color of burnished copper, eyes like molten gold, a crown of crystalline spikes that pulsed with purple light. Humans of Earth, the alien said, its voice smooth and cold. I am High Chancellor Vexthor of the Galactic Empire. For 50,000 years we have ruled this galaxy. 600 worlds bow before our throne. Today we extend to you a courtesy. In the United Nations Emergency Chamber, world leaders sat frozen. General Sarah Chen of the Global Defense Coalition gripped her armrest so hard her knuckles turned white. On the screen, Vexthor's scaled lips curled into something resembling a smile. You will surrender your world within 7 of your days, he continued. You will dismantle your primitive weapons. You will accept Calvaxian governance. In return, we will allow your species to survive as laborers in our empire. The alien paused, his golden eyes gleaming with amusement. We understand this may seem harsh, but consider the alternative. We have observed your civilization. Your technology is laughable. Your military is scattered. Your people cannot even agree on basic governance of your own planet. He leaned forward. You have 1 week. Surrender, or watch your cities burn from orbit. The choice is yours. The screens went dark. For 3 seconds, the UN chamber was silent. Then everyone started shouting at once, "This is insane!" How did they bypass every security system on the planet? Can we even fight something like this? General Chen stood, her voice cutting through the chaos. Quiet. The room fell silent. She looked around at the faces of presidents, prime ministers, and military commanders. Fear, panic, desperation. She took a breath. 7 days. We have 7 days to figure out if humanity will die on its knees or on its feet. Across the solar system, hidden in the shadows of Jupiter's moons, something stirred. For 15 years, a secret project had been underway. Only a handful of people knew it existed. The Calvaxians, with all their advanced sensors and arrogance, had never detected it. Admiral Marcus Kane floated in the zero-gravity command center of Prometheus Station. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the construction bays where humanity's true fleet waited, not the outdated carriers and destroyers the public knew about. These were different. Sleeker. Faster. Armed with technology reverse-engineered from a crashed alien probe the world had never learned about. Admiral, his communications officer called out. Earth confirms the ultimatum. The Calvaxians are serious. Kane's jaw tightened. He was 62 years old. He'd fought in 3 wars. He'd lost his daughter to a terrorist attack in New Delhi. He'd seen the worst humanity could do to itself. But he'd also seen the best, the way people came together when everything was on the line. How many ships do we have operational? He asked. 47 stealth frigates. 12 heavy cruisers. 3 carriers. The officer hesitated. Sir, intelligence reports the Calvaxian fleet has over 2,000 ships. We're outnumbered 50 to 1. Kane looked out at his fleet. 47 frigates against an empire that had conquered 600 worlds. The math was brutal. But math wasn't everything. 50 to 1, he repeated quietly. Then he smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. Sounds about fair. On Earth, the 7-day countdown began. Some people panicked. Riots broke out in major cities. Religious leaders declared it the end times. Stock markets collapsed. But something else happened too. Something the Calvaxians didn't expect. Humanity got angry. In Tokyo, a team of engineers worked around the clock to weaponize civilian satellites. In Cape Town, quantum physicists shared their research freely, abandoning patents and profits. In Moscow, hackers from 12 nations collaborated to develop cyber weapons. Old enemies put aside decades of hatred. Scientists shared data. Militaries coordinated strategies. The world had never been more united. General Chen stood before the UN Security Council on day 3. We have a decision to make, she said. The Calvaxians expect us to surrender or die. But there's a third option. What option? The Chinese premier asked. We can't fight them. No, Chen agreed. We can't fight them the way they expect. She activated a holographic display. It showed the solar system. But we don't have to. Admiral Kane's fleet isn't strong enough to win a direct battle, but it's strong enough to make them bleed. The Calvaxians have conquered 600 worlds, but they've never faced resistance. They're used to enemies who surrender or die quickly. They're not used to guerrilla warfare. To hit-and-run tactics, to an enemy who refuses to quit. She looked around the room. We won't surrender. We'll make them work for every inch of space. We'll use our home advantage. We'll make them so angry, so frustrated that they make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, she smiled, we'll make them pay. The vote was unanimous. On day 7, the Calvaxian fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. Over 2,000 ships, each one larger than an aircraft carrier. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand nuclear blasts. High Chancellor Vexthor sat on his command throne and smiled. Scan the planet, he ordered. Show me their surrender. The tactical officer looked up, confusion on his scaled face. My lord, they're not surrendering. Vexthor's smile faded. What? They're launching ships. Small craft, dozens of them. They're attacking us. For a moment, Vexthor was too stunned to respond. Then he began to laugh, a deep rumbling laugh that echoed through the bridge. The fools, he roared. They dare challenge the Galactic Empire? Very well, destroy them. Show these primitives what happens to those who defy us. The Calvaxian fleet advanced. Admiral Kane watched them come. His small fleet looked like gnats compared to the enemy armada. But gnats could still bite all ships, he said calmly. Remember the plan. Hit fast, hit hard, and make them chase us into hell. The battle for Earth had begun. The swarm, the Calvaxian dreadnought Eternal Glory, was 3 kilometers long. Its main cannon could vaporize a city with a single shot. High Chancellor Vexthor stood on the bridge, watching the human ships approach on his tactical display. They're like insects, he muttered. Annoying insects. His fleet had arranged itself in the traditional Calvaxian battle formation, a wall of heavy cruisers at the front, carriers in the middle, command ships at the rear. It was a formation that had crushed 600 worlds. It was perfect, unbeatable. The human ships didn't even try to break through the front lines. Instead, they scattered. 47 frigates split into 7 groups and dove in different directions. The Calvaxian sensors tracked them, confused. What are they doing? Vexthor's tactical officer asked. Admiral Kane sat in the command chair of the frigate Defiance. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. Through the viewport, he could see Earth, a blue jewel hanging in the darkness. His home, worth fighting for. Ghost protocol active, his pilot reported. Stealth systems online. One by one, the human ships vanished from Calvaxian sensors. Not completely. They left faint traces, deliberate breadcrumbs. Enough to make the enemy curious. Enough to make them chase. They're splitting up, my lord, the tactical officer reported. Our sensors are having trouble tracking them. They're using some kind of cloaking technology. Vexthor's eyes narrowed. Send pursuit squadrons. I want those ships destroyed. It was exactly what Kane had wanted. The Calvaxian fleet broke formation. 50 ships peeled off to chase the human frigates. Then 50 more. Then 100. Like predators chasing rabbits, they scattered across the solar system. Each group was certain they outnumbered their prey. Each group was confident of an easy kill. They were wrong. The first Calvaxian squadron caught up to 3 human frigates near Mars. 10 Calvaxian destroyers against 3 small human ships. The destroyers opened fire, energy beams lighting up the darkness. The human ships dodged with impossible agility, their smaller size and advanced engines letting them dance between the attacks. Then the asteroid started moving. The Calvaxians had been so focused on the frigates, they hadn't noticed the asteroid field, hadn't noticed the human mining drones that had spent the last week attaching engines and explosives to hundreds of space rocks. Now those rocks were launching themselves at the Calvaxian ships like massive bullets. 3 destroyers were smashed apart in seconds. The rest scattered, their formation broken. The human frigates turned and opened fire with railguns, weapons that fired solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. No energy shields could stop solid matter moving that fast. 2 more destroyers exploded. Regroup, the Calvaxian squadron leader screamed. But regrouping meant slowing down, and slowing down meant death. The human ships hit them from 3 directions at once, fast, brutal, efficient. In 90 seconds, the entire Calvaxian squadron was debris. The 3 human frigates vanished back into the asteroid field. On the Eternal Glory, Vexthor watched his tactical display light up with casualty reports. 5 ships lost, then 8, then 12. His squadrons were being torn apart. How is this possible? He roared. They're primitives. My lord, his science officer said nervously. They're using tactics we've never seen. Hit-and-run attacks, ambushes. They're not fighting like a traditional fleet. They're fighting like... He hesitated. Like pirates. Vexthor's face twisted with rage. Pirates? We are the Galactic Empire. We do not lose to pirates. He slammed his fist on his throne. Recall all squadrons. We advance as one fleet, crush them with overwhelming force, but recall wasn't simple. The Calvaxian ships were scattered across the solar system. Some were near Jupiter, others near Saturn. Getting them back into formation would take hours. Hours the humans used to devastating effect. Near Jupiter's moon Europa, 5 human frigates lured 30 Calvaxian cruisers into a trap. The humans had planted nuclear mines throughout the ice field around the moon. When the Calvaxians followed, the mines detonated. Not to destroy, the Calvaxian shields could handle nuclear blasts, but to blind. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted sensors and communications. In the chaos, the human ships struck. They targeted engines first, crippling the cruiser's ability to maneuver. Then they picked the ships apart one by one. By the time Calvaxian reinforcements arrived, 15 cruisers were destroyed and the human ships were gone. General Chen watched the battle reports flood in at the UN command center. Every face in the room was tense. They were winning skirmishes, but the war was far from over. The Calvaxian fleet still had over 1,800 ships. One mistake and Earth would burn. Admiral Kane is calling, a communications officer announced. Kane's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but determined. General, we've bloodied their nose. But they're regrouping. In 6 hours, their full fleet will advance on Earth orbit. When they do, we can't stop them. Chen nodded grimly. How many ships have we lost? 7 frigates. 2 cruisers. Kane's jaw tightened. We're down to 40 operational ships. Ma'am, we can't win a direct battle. Then we don't fight a direct battle, Chen replied. We fight the only battle we can win. The one for Earth itself. On the Eternal Glory, Vexthor finally had his fleet together again. He'd lost over 200 ships, but he still had overwhelming superiority. The humans had fought cleverly, but cleverness only delayed the inevitable. All ships advance, he commanded. Maximum speed. We end this now. The Calvaxian armada surged toward Earth like a tidal wave of metal and energy. They crossed the orbit of Mars, then passed the asteroid belt. Earth grew larger in their viewports, a vulnerable blue sphere with no fleet left to defend it. High Chancellor Vexthor smiled. Prepare orbital bombardment, he ordered. Target their major cities. I want the humans to watch their world burn before they... My lord, the sensor officer shouted. Energy spike. Massive energy spike from Earth. Vexthor spun toward the display. What are you... The planet's surface lit up with thousands of points of light. Every military base, every hidden installation, every secret weapon humanity had been building for 15 years. Railgun batteries that could punch through shields, directed energy weapons that could slice through armor, and missiles. Thousands and thousands of missiles, each one carrying experimental warheads designed specifically to kill Calvaxian ships. Earth itself had become a fortress, and the Calvaxians had just flown into its range. Evasive maneuvers, Vexthor screamed, but they were too close. Too confident. Too bunched together in their traditional formation. The missiles struck home. Energy beams carved through hulls. Railgun rounds punched through command bridges. In the first 30 seconds, 50 ships were destroyed. In the first minute, 100. The Calvaxian fleet tried to retreat, but Admiral Kane's remaining ships appeared behind them, cutting off escape routes. The humans had turned the space around Earth into a kill zone. Vexthor watched his fleet die, ship after ship, hundreds of years of Calvaxian dominance ending in explosions and screaming metal. Retreat, he finally roared. Full retreat! The surviving Calvaxian ships turned and fled, nearly 600 ships destroyed. Their fleet shattered, their pride crushed. High Chancellor Vexthor sat on his throne, his golden eyes wide with shock. The primitives had won. The laughable humans with their primitive weapons had defeated the mighty Calvaxian Empire. It wasn't possible, but it had happened. The reckoning, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Calvaxian Empire, rulers of 600 worlds, undefeated for 50,000 years, had been humiliated by a species that hadn't even mastered faster-than-light travel. In alien bars and trading posts from one end of the galaxy to the other, The story was told and retold. Some laughed. Some were shocked. But everyone paid attention. Humanity had done the impossible. On Earth, celebrations lasted for 3 days. Cities that had prepared for annihilation now erupted with joy. Strangers embraced in the streets. World leaders who had been enemies weeks ago shook hands and smiled. General Sarah Chen stood on the balcony of the UN building and looked out at the crowds below. "We did it," Admiral Kane said beside her. His uniform was stained with soot and dried blood from a hull breach on his ship. He'd refused medical treatment until every wounded sailor was cared for first. "We did," Chen agreed, but her expression was serious. "The question is, what happens next?" Kane understood. They'd won a battle, not the war. The Galactic Empire still controlled 600 worlds. They had thousands more ships. And now humanity had humiliated them. Empires didn't forget that kind of insult. In the Galactic capital of Zircon, 300 light-years from Earth, Emperor Kalaroth sat on his crystalline throne and listened to High Chancellor Vexthor's report. The throne room was vast, carved from a single enormous diamond glowing with inner light. Hundreds of courtiers and officials stood in perfect ranks, their faces carefully neutral. Vexthor knelt before the Emperor, his scaled head bowed. "Your Imperial Majesty, I take full responsibility for the setback." "Setback?" Emperor Kalaroth's voice was soft, but it carried. He was ancient, over 3,000 years old, and his power was absolute. "You lost 600 ships to a species we classified as primitive. You retreated in disgrace. You have made the Empire look weak." He paused. "That is not a setback, Vexthor. That is a disaster." "My lord, Silence." The Emperor stood. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, his ceremonial armor glowing with embedded power sources. "For 50,000 years the galaxy has feared us. Now they will wonder. If humans can defeat us, what about others? What about the Throne Guard rebellion on Kexlar? What about the mining colonies that want independence?" He looked around the throne room. Every eye was on him. "This cannot stand," he declared. "I am assembling the Grand Armada. Every available ship. Every warrior. We will return to Earth with overwhelming force. And this time, we will not offer surrender. We will make an example of humanity. We will turn their world into ash and scatter it across their solar system. Every species in the galaxy will see what happens to those who defy the Galactic Empire." A murmur of approval ran through the court. Vexthor kept his head bowed, but relief flickered in his golden eyes. He would be given a chance to redeem himself. "Assemble 5,000 ships," the Emperor commanded. "I will lead the fleet personally. We depart in 1 month." On Earth, intelligence satellites picked up the fleet movements within days. 5,000 ships. Every sensor array, every spy drone, every intercepted communication confirmed it. The Calvaxians were coming back, and this time they were bringing everything. Emergency meetings were held. Plans were drafted and discarded. The guerrilla tactics that had worked before wouldn't work against such overwhelming numbers. Earth's defenses had been depleted in the first battle. They didn't have time to rebuild. "We're out of options," the Russian premier said bluntly at the UN summit. "We won a miracle once. We can't expect another." General Chen stood at the head of the table. She'd barely slept in weeks. Her hair had gone grayer, but her eyes were still sharp. "We have one option left," she said quietly. "We run," the room erupted. "Run where?" "Deep space," Chen replied. "We have colony ships, sleeper vessels. We can evacuate as many people as possible, scatter them across the solar system and beyond. Some of us will survive." "And abandon Earth?" The Indian ambassador looked horrified. "To save humanity," Chen said. "Yes," Admiral Kane shook his head. "There's another option." Everyone turned to look at him. He activated a holographic star map. "We don't run. We don't hide. We recruit." "Recruit?" the Chinese premier asked. "Recruit who?" "Every species the Calvaxians have conquered," Kane replied. "Every world they've enslaved. Every colony that's been taxed and oppressed for centuries." He zoomed in on various star systems. "Intelligence reports indicate there have been rebellions on at least 40 worlds in the last decade. All crushed, all punished. But the anger is still there. The resentment." He looked around the room. "What if we show them that the Calvaxians can be beaten? What if we give them hope?" "You want to start a galactic rebellion?" the UN Secretary General said slowly. "I want to give the Calvaxians a war on 600 fronts," Kane replied. They're sending every ship they have to Earth. That means their other worlds are vulnerable. If we can coordinate uprisings across the Empire, they'll have to divide their forces. And divided forces can be defeated. Chen's eyes widened. That's insane. Yes, Kane agreed. But so was defeating 600 Calvaxian ships with 40 frigates. The vote was close. But eventually the decision was made. Earth would not run. Earth would fight. And this time they wouldn't fight alone. Faster-than-light communication was one of the few technologies humanity had successfully reverse-engineered from the alien probe. Now they used it to send a message to every conquered world in the Calvaxian Empire. The message was simple. The Calvaxians are not invincible. Earth has proven it. Rise up, fight back. We will help you. Together we can be free. The responses came slowly at first, then faster. Within 2 weeks, rebellions had started on 12 worlds. Within a month, 35. The Calvaxian Empire, so stable for so long, suddenly faced chaos. On Kexelar, slave workers seized weapons and attacked their overseers. On Theron IV, the entire colonial government defected and declared independence. On Vornax, rebels destroyed the Calvaxian shipyards. Emperor Kalroth received the reports with mounting fury. His Grand Armada was almost ready to depart for Earth, but now fires were burning across his empire. If he sent all his ships to crush humanity, the rebellions would spread. If he divided his forces to handle the rebellions, Earth might survive. He'd been outmaneuvered. The humans, he said slowly, his voice shaking with rage. They planned this. What are your orders, my lord? Vexthor asked. The Emperor stared at the star map showing his crumbling empire. For the first time in his 3,000-year life, he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not quite, but close. Uncertainty. Send 3,000 ships to Earth, he finally said. Dispatch the rest to crush the rebellions. And send a message to the humans. What message, my lord? The Emperor's eyes glowed with cold fury. Tell them that when we're done putting down these insects, we will return. And we will show them what true power means. On Earth, Admiral Kane received the message. He read it and smiled grimly. 3,000 ships instead of 5,000. Still impossible odds, but better than before. Reply to the Emperor, he told his communications officer. What should I say, sir? Kane thought for a moment. Then he said, tell him we'll be waiting. Tell him humanity doesn't kneel. Not to gods, not to emperors, not to anyone. And tell him, he paused, tell him the age of the Calvaxian Empire is over. The age of free worlds has begun. The message was sent. Across the galaxy on 600 worlds, beings who had lived under Calvaxian rule for centuries heard it. Some laughed. Some cried. Some picked up weapons for the first time in their lives. The Calvaxian Empire had ruled for 50,000 years, but humanity had lit a spark. And sparks, given enough fuel, become fires that consume empires. High Chancellor Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the 3,000-ship armada prepare to jump to faster-than-light speed. They were heading to Earth, to crush the humans once and for all. But as he looked at the tactical displays showing rebellions spreading across the Empire, a thought occurred to him. A thought he tried to push away but couldn't. What if they lose? He'd seen what the humans were capable of. Their tactics, their refusal to surrender, their ability to inspire others. For the first time in his 400-year life, Vexthor wondered if the Calvaxian Empire was truly invincible. The fleet jumped to FTL. The journey to Earth would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks for humanity to prepare, 3 weeks for the rebellions to spread, 3 weeks for the galaxy to watch and wonder. The battle for Earth was over. But the war for the galaxy had just begun. On Earth, General Sarah Chen stood on the roof of UN headquarters and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3,000 warships were coming to destroy her world. But also out there, on dozens of worlds, people were fighting for their freedom. Because humanity had shown them it was possible, Admiral Kane joined her. We started something, he said quietly. Yeah, Chen agreed. Question is, can we finish it? Kane smiled. We're human. We don't know how to quit. Above them, the stars shone bright and cold, indifferent to the struggles of nations and empires. But among those stars, something was changing. A shift that would echo through history. Humanity had been mocked, underestimated, written off as primitive and weak. But they'd fought back, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end